All right, so very good morning, everyone. Very good afternoon to all of you who are in India and elsewhere in the world. We're absolutely delighted today to have this special session within the Global Week of the University of Portsmouth, a special session on the learning, the teaching of Guru Nanak. Before I introduce the panelists, let me maybe give the floor to our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Chris Chang, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the ambitions of the University of Portsmouth in terms of global engagement.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to particularly our panelists, Professor Hakiran Kaur, Vice President, Chikara Alumni Network, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Chair from Chikara University, a university that we know well and is a friend, and Mr. Manjit Singh, author, founder, Science to the Spirit, who has also joined us together with our student, Arish Iqbal, who is president of the Indian Student Society at the University of Portsmouth. And thank you, Leila, for chairing the panel session as well. Very warm welcome to this talk. This is one of a series of events that we've organized at the university for Global Week. Global Week is a very important part of the university's life. It is one where we can share our culture, our different cultures that makes up our student population and staff population with others. We have over 150 nationalities within our student body and in excess of 70 different nationalities within our staff body. So we are a global university, a university that has a richness in the culture due to the makeup of its student staff, as well as our local community in Portsmouth. We value this diversity, we value these cultural differences, and we value the opportunity that all of us have to learn from each other, the different cultures, the different approaches, and the richness that that integration and diversity brings to all our lives, both academically, professionally, and personally. So I really welcome this event that's been organized. Thank you for the participants. The one thing that this pandemic has allowed us to do is the ability for colleagues to connect in a conference and a talk of this nature, literally from all over the world. We would not have had the opportunity to have Professor Hakiran join us all the way from India on this discussion. Otherwise, it would traditionally have been a talk at the university. We have to get people here. However, now we have a good group of people, literally from all the world, that can enjoy learning more about Sikhism and all the richness that it brings. So I'm going to now hand over to Professor Hakiran to give her presentation. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this hour.
Leila. Sorry. Thank you very much, Chris. And I was saying, Professor Kaur, the floor is yours very much. Shall I maybe say a few words about you? You're the Vice President of Chikara Alumni Network. You're Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Chair. You're in charge of a number of strategic initiatives for the university, and you have a vast experience nationally and internationally in education. So we're absolutely delighted to have you with us, Professor Kaur. So without further ado, the floor is yours.
Sat Shri Akal and greetings from India to everyone across the globe. It is a pleasure to be part of this platform. It is a spiritual journey, and I'm indeed honored to be a part of it. I'll just share my screen and then we'll start with the presentation. A quick look what Guru Nanak is, what the spiritual journey is, and what the world has taken away, and what the world is yet to take from this person, the individual, the first Guru of Sikh, Guru Nanak. I'll just share my presentation. Greetings, everyone, from Chikara University, India. Chikara is a name to reckon with in terms of educational excellence. Today, we are here for Guru Nanak, the celestial light of the world. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be a part of this illustrious forum for University of
Apologies to interrupt you, Professor Kaur. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It seems that we have some noise or some music, so probably it doesn't.
It's a music in the background.
Presentation, so we're very, very good, very good.
It's a music in the background, yeah. So I took up this topic, this, if I may say, today, as the Honorable Provost said, that the beyond global, we are going beyond globe. So beyond books and beyond borders, a spiritual journey, Sarbat da Bala, this is what Guru Nanak is all about. Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Chair, Chitkara University, Chandigarh, India, is proud to be a part of this panel. Coming from land of unity and diversity, India, Chandigarh, where we belong, India's first planned city with green environs, and is called the City Beautiful. I must share with the august audience today that BBC has named it the most perfect, remarkable, ideal city in the world. And before I proceed, I welcome everyone whenever time allows, permits, Corona allows, be our guest at Chitkara University, India. It is a matter of pride for me to share with all of you that in recognition of his valuable contribution in the field of education, His Excellency Captain Amrinder Singh, Chief Minister of Punjab, conferred Dr. Ashok K. Chitkara, our Honorable Chancellor, with Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Achievers Award. As a part of 550th birthday celebrations of Guru Nanak Dev Ji held at Kapurthala in India, Chitkara University was among a selected group of few elite universities designated to establish a chair in the name of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and the mission was to support research, dissemination of the Guru's teachings through academic courses, to comprehensively and in a focused manner contribute to furthering the message of peace and universal brotherhood, to provide the academic setting to ensure that the research undertaken conforms to the highest standards. Dr. Ashok K. Chitkara, Dr. Madhu Chitkara, and His Excellency Captain Amrinder Singh, Chief Minister of Punjab, during the 550th birth celebration of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, where we were bestowed with this chair. And under that chair only, we are spearheading this part of the forum of today's talk about Guru Nanak. As your provost shared, sir, I would like to share with you that Chitkara University, the world says it's a place of opportunity. We have partnerships with across 216 partners across the globe, and whosoever comes to this part, the only word they have to say is that this is a place of opportunity. We have students representing India and Chitkara in different forums across the globe, from Harvard to Stanford to different exchange programs, and this is just a sheer glimpse of that. And cross-cultural learning is our mantra. We are looking forward to across the year. We have students from across different 216 partner universities, different forums coming to Chitkara for learning. And international delegates celebrating Indian festivities in our campus. We ensure that the world sees incredible India through incredible Chitkara. So we ensure that they are part of the festivities, whatever is happening on campus. So this was a German delegation on campus when we were celebrating the Lori, the bonfire festival in the month of January on campus. So this is a glimpse of what Chitkara world is all about, and I look forward to have you on campus whenever time permits. And now taking on to the topic that we are here, Guru Nanak, the birth, the life journey, the social scenario, the basic tenets and teachings, contribution, Sikhism and Udasis. One by one, I'll just weave the fabric of our talk today. I'm delighted to welcome you to Understanding Guru Nanak and Sikhism. Dear all, we are living in GAFA era, where Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon are the new gurus. In a world that is increasingly fragmented in a rat race, fast-paced lives with a narrow tunnel vision, bigotry and dogmatism, we have to walk on the path shown us to by Guru Nanak, to dispel the darkness that constantly threatens to envelop individuals, communities, and nations, and to believe in Sarbat da Bala. This is what we are talking today for all of us. It is important to recall that his birth, and through him, the religion of Sikhism took place at a time when India was witnessing a war between two religions, Hindus and Muslims. And then peace existed only in a vacuum that Guru Nanak filled through his message of tolerance, social justice, and inclusivity. फिर उठी आवाज एक तौहीद की पंजाब से, हिंद को एक मर्दे कामल ने जगाया ख्वाब से. A voice of a Masiha rose to awaken Hindustan from slumber of sufferings. The birth of Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak was born in 1469, about 40 miles south of Lahore in Punjab. in geographical region that straddles present-day Eastern Pakistan and Northern India. Nanak received a classical education in Sanskrit, Persian, and Arabic. At the age of 6, let me share with my audience, as custom dictated, Nanak was prepared for the sacred thread Janau ceremony. He refused to wear the thread. He stated that one's high caste status should be based on one's actions, not merely wearing a piece of cotton that could be brought in the marketplace and which wears out with time. Addressing the priest, he said, "Let compassion be your cotton, contentment your thread. Give it knots of continence, and with a twist of truth, weave a janau for the soul. If you have it, then put it on me. The thread so made will not break, or become soiled, or be burned, nor lost. Blessed is the one," says Nanak, "who wears such a thread on his neck." Right since childhood, Guru Nanak raised fundamental questions about life and traditions. He refused to submit to blind faith and hypocrisy. At age 7, his father enrolled him in the village school, as was the custom. Notable lore recounts that a child, Nanak, astonished his teacher by describing the implicit symbolism of the first letter of the alphabet resembling the mathematical version of one, as denoting the unity of or oneness of God, Ek Onkar. Other childhood accounts refer to strange and miraculous events about Nanak, such as one witnessed by Rai Bular, in which the sleeping child's head was shaded from the harsh sunlight, in one account, by the stationary shadow of a tree, or another by a venomous cobra. If you see the picture on the right-hand side, the world was astonished. Rai Bular was walking in his fields. He saw that this child Nanak is sleeping and the cobra is giving the shade. That was a symbol that yes, he is not an ordinary child. He is the Messiah, he is the messenger of God. Islamic invasions had continued spread of Islam in northern India at that time. Lodi dynasty was the ruling dynasty of time. Guru Nanak, who also witnessed fall of Lodi clan and barbaric attacks of Babur, laying the foundation of Mughal dynasty. Indian society was in a state of exploitation, confusion, and darkness. Vedic and Upanishadic values had diluted. Caste divide was rampantly practiced. Guru Nanak condemned all of them in addition to the ruling class and brought in a fresh year of spiritual enlightenment that freed people from bondage of bigotry and introduced them to an integrated humanity having no discrimination based on religion, caste, gender, or any other bias. With my audience, I would like to share that Guru Nanak's life parallels a period of great creative ferment and revival in Europe. The Copernican revolution, the religious protest of Martin Luther, the discovery of the New World by Columbus, all these created conditions for the emergence of a modern outlook that informs our lives today. Guru Nanak philosophy is a remarkable mixture of Upanishadic idealism and empirical realism. Sikh tradition celebrates the advent of Guru Nanak as the descending of divine light on earth and emergence of a new dawn. Sadguru Nanak Pargatya Mitti Tun Jag Chanan Hua. That means a divine light has come. E punya da chandi te tare rahenge, te Nanak de vasde duare rahenge. The moon, the stars will always remain lifting the fog of ignorance. And because of Nanak's blessings, the world will be prosperous. These lines were written by my late mother, as she was a staunch, pious lady, follower of Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak defined God as Ek Onkar, God is one. Satnam, his name is the truth. Karta Purak, he is the only creator. Nirbhav, he doesn't have any fear. Nirvair, he has no animosity or hatred. Akal Murat, he is beyond the bondage of time. Ajuni Sabham, he is beyond birth and death, self-existent. Guru Prasad, reached by Guruji's blessings. Guru Nanak declared, "Na koi Hindu, na Musliman." Nobody is Hindu, nobody is Musliman. We all are humans. He declared that this world that we see is all a reflection of God. He lives in his creation, this nature. He resides in all of us, and we need to realize him. We will not find him in jungles. He removed the confusion of praviti and nivriti, worldly life and spiritual life, and declared that a householder can live a pious and devoted life by performing his worldly duties honestly, his life dedicated to the Almighty by following simple principles. Nam Japo, that is, recite Lord's names all the time. Kirt Karo, and earn your livings with honest work. Van Chako, share your food with others and the needy. Guru Nanak's contribution to India and world is invaluable and immeasurable. He was a bold protagonist of world peace, declaring all humans as equal. He opened dharamshalas, gurdwaras, open to everyone for food, shelter, and sleep. He advocated the existence of one God and taught his followers that every human being can reach out to God through meditation and other pious practices. Interestingly, audience, you must know that Guru Nanak did not support monotheism and asked his followers to lead the life of honest householder. His teachings were immortalized in the form of 974 hymns, which came to be known as Guru Granth Sahib, the holy text of Sikhism. His approach with spirituality and life was logical and scientific. He questioned dogma and blind faith. Much before space explorers, he declared that there are many earths, skies, and newer worlds in space. His knowledge and insight was much ahead of his time. He taught universal brotherhood, love, peace, and emancipation of the soul through simple living. The world today talks about women empowerment. In about 1499, when the world offered low to no status or respect to women, Guru Nanak Dev Ji sought to improve the respect of women. He did not differentiate between his men and women disciples and gave both of them an equal status. He said, "So kyo manda akhiye jit jame rajan." Why consider women as inferior when she gives birth to the kings? It is such a powerful thought of those times, what the world is now into. Guru Nanak says, from woman, man is born. Within woman, man is conceived. To woman, he is engaged and married. Woman becomes his friend. Through woman, the future generations come. When his woman dies, he seeks another woman. To woman, he is bound. So why call her bad? From her, kings are born. From woman, woman is born. Without woman, there would be no one at all. And then followed Sikhi and Sikhism. The wonderful audience, I would like to share with you that Sikhi, commonly known as Sikhism, is a monotheistic religious tradition that was founded by Guru Nanak in the 15th century Punjab in South Asia. It is the fifth largest religion with around 25 to 30 million adherents in the world, who can be found all over the globe, making the Sikh tradition one of the 6 major religions of the world. Sikhi began in Punjab, literally the land of 5 rivers, a region of strategic importance. Sikhi encompasses a number of religious, social, economic, and political institutions, most of which were established and nurtured by Guru Nanak and his 9 successors, known as Sikh Gurus. Sikhs accept the authority of the 10 Sikhs, the Sikh scripture Guru Granth Sahib, and the Panth as the political body of the Sikhs as a people. Sikhism. His disciples were called Sikhs, derived from the word Shishya, that means a student who's always learning. Throughout his life, he's a learner, he's a student. That is why he's called a Sikh, who's ready to learn. Sikhs started a new way of life, praying to one God, making an honest living, and helping fellow human beings. Sikhism emphasizes on the importance of leading a spiritual life without embracing monotheism. It teaches its followers to escape the clutches of ordinary human traits such as lust, rage, greed, attachment, and conceit, collectively known as 5 thieves. Sikhism is a monotheistic religion that teaches the concepts of worldly illusion, maya, karma, and liberation. Today, gurdwaras are open for food and shelter to everyone at many places in India, UK, USA, Canada, Australia, Singapore, and many more countries. Sikhs serve food to the needy and homeless, organizing langars. Golden Temple, Amritsar alone feeds 1 lakh people every day. Millions of Sikhs representing Guru Nanak to spread love and brotherhood in this world and teaching spirituality through a simple and honest living are the biggest contribution of Guru Nanak to the world. Dear colleagues, COVID-19 changed the world we are living in. And again, in this pandemic, one of the principles of Guru Sahib, One Chako, was witnessed by the world. Sikh volunteers like Khalsa Aid are always reaching to hotbeds of natural disasters and war zones for helping people with daily necessities of life, medical aid, emotional and mental comfort, the only human love and brotherhood can provide. But the pandemic came with a different kind of challenge. During COVID-19, people were more scared of hunger than the virus. People were starving, children were crying for food. In Delhi only in India, langar was served to over 1 lakh people every day by Sikh volunteers. I would like to share with all of you that appreciating and recognizing the efforts of Khalsa Aid and Sikhs and the selfless service provided by the volunteers during pandemic, the governments of US, Canada, Australia decided to unfurl the Nishan Sahib parallel to their national flag, and this practice continued for months. Prannoy Roy, he is the leading Indian journalist and psephologist, who is the co-founder of executive and co-chairperson of leading news channel NDTV, pitched Nobel Peace Prize for Sikh Sardars carrying out humanitarian works, including organizing langars across the work during the pandemic. Also, let me take you back in time of gallantry by Sikhs. They were sent to Hong Kong in 1861 to police a garrison and to Malaya in 1873 to put down a Chinese insurgency in the tin mines of Perak. Infrastructure projects in Africa were taken by them, specifically in Kenya, Uganda railway project in the 1890s drew around 10,000 Punjabis, out of which 3,000 were Sikhs. By 1947, there were over 10,000 Sikhs in Africa, mainly in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. This is how the Sikhism fabric was woven by following the tenets of Guru Nanak. Let me take you back to the last phase of Guru Nanak, that was Udasis. In 1500, he embarked on his divine mission and went towards east, west, north, and south and visited various centers of Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Jain, Sufis, yogis, and Siddhas. He met people of different religions, tribes, cultures, and races. He traveled on foot with his Muslim companion named Bhai Mardana, a minstrel. His travels are called Udasis. They became wandering minstrels. Mardana played a stringed instrument called a rabab and accompanied Nanak when he sang his poetic compositions. They embarked on a journey series of Udasis mission tours and traveled together preaching and teaching that there is only one God. People called Shri Guru Nanak with different names in different countries and places. This traveling, Guru Nanak Dev Ji visited several countries and preached the people about the one God and humanity. And he also solved several problems of people of local community of those countries. This is the reason people called him with different names in their languages. In India, except Sikkim area, people call Guru Nanak Sahib as Guru Nanak Dev Ji. In Sri Lanka, he's called as Nanak Charya. In Tibet, called as Nanak Lama. Sikkim and Bhutan, Guru Rinpoche, and in Russia, called as Nanak Kadamdar. Iraq called him or calls him Nanak Pir. Nepal, he was called as Nanak Rishi. In China, as Baba Fusa. In Egypt, he was called as Nanak Wali. In Saudi Arabia, as Wali Rind. Let me take you through his first Udasi. First Udasi, from 1500 to 1506, he traveled in central and eastern India, going as far as Assam. Second Udasi, 1506 to 1513, he traveled to South India. Some scholars state that he visited Sri Lanka, Sinhala Dweep too. Third Udasi, in his traveling, Guru Nanak traveled to Gangetic Plains, Bihar, Nepal, Leh. And according to some scholars, also state Lhasa and Tashkent, etc., then back to Punjab via Kashmir Valley. He didn't have any GPRS. There were no Google Maps. It was the mindset of traveling across the globe, spreading one word that God is one and we should love with humanity, with love and peace. Fourth Udasi was from 1519 to 1521. Guru Nanak traveled to Arab countries, including Makkah. I would just like to share one instant of those Udasis with all of you. During one of his Udasis, traveling on foot for the purpose of preaching, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, along with Bhai Mardana, reached a village. The people of that village were corrupt, dishonest, rude, and never respected their guests. While leaving that village, Guru Nanak Dev Ji raised his hands and blessed the villagers, saying, Baste Raho, which meant, may you keep dwelling and prospering here only. The next day, they reached another village. The people of this village were honest, spiritual, were very receptive, received their guests kindly, and did seva wholeheartedly. While leaving that village, Guru Nanak Dev Ji raised his hand and blessed the villagers, saying, Ujjar jao. That means, may you get displaced. Shocked by this, Bhai Mardana Ji asked Guru Nanak why he did so. To which the Guru explained, when the people with good values and clean conscience will get displaced, wherever they will go, they will spread peace and harmony. On the other side, if the people with evil qualities disperse, they will spread corruption everywhere because that is all they have. The world needs more of good, not bad. This is what the thought process was of Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak's extensive travels as far as to Central Asia, the Middle East, and various locations across South Asia helps us to see that his vision of oneness was not limited to Punjab. His use of a wide range of languages and dialects demonstrates that he was trying to bring his message to a broad cross-section of people. Therefore, it is not surprising that today Sikhism and Guru Nanak's followers exist in over 75 countries. Later years, he also traveled extensively in Punjab from 1523-24, and from 1525-1539, he lived as a householder farmer's life in Kartarpur. Successor, Guru Nanak appointed Bhai Lehna as successor Guru, renaming as Guru Angad, meaning one's own part, very own part, or one of you. I would like to share with the audience that he had two sons, Siri Chand and Lakshmi Chand, but he did not pass on the legacy to his sons. He passed on the legacy to the person who devoted his life to the society. That is the legacy that Guru Nanak has. He, shortly after proclaiming Bhai Lehna as his successor, Guru Nanak died in year 1539 in Kartarpur at the age of 70. An exquisite little poem by Anand Narayan Mulla, a philosopher of these times, and at the 500th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak in 1969, he said that kasafate zindagi ki zulmat mein shame zak sofisha hu kaise jahan ki bujhti hui nigahon ko jagmagata hai bame Nanak. He said Guru Nanak lightens up the fading lives in density of life. Na pak koi, na koi, na pak, koi uncha, na koi nicha. Guru ka ye main kada hai, is jagah har ek ko milta hai jame Nanak. He says Nanak, when blessings are forever without any discrimination. Yahan mite aake tafrake sab, rahe na alaidgi koi bhi. Ye harfe ulfat, ye torafe irfan, ye arshe insa, ye name Nanak. He said Nanak's names bridges the differences and makes this world a beautiful place to live in. Ardas, which is all across the globe, what Nanak says, Nanak naam chardi kala, tere paani sarbada pala. Says Nanak that God's name is the rising tide, and his blessings do good, peace, prosperity, salvation to all. This is what I had to share about Guru Nanak.
Thank you so much, Professor Kaur. Thank you so much for this extremely inspiring presentation on Guru Nanak and his teaching. It's such a modern and generous face, really. We'll discuss that together, but for those of us who've discovered Sikhism in a different environment, it comes across, I think, an extremely modern and extremely generous and certainly inclusive face. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to the next panelist, Mr. Manjit Singh. Mr. Singh is an author. He's the founder of Science to Spirit. He's regularly contributing to academic discussion on Sikhism, and he's soon to publish a book, and I'm sure he's going to tell us much more about all that. Mr. Singh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Leila, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Professor Kiran Kaur, for shedding light on Guru Nanak's life and his teachings. Guru Nanak is an ocean of knowledge. We can talk about his teachings for hours and hours. Since we are doing this webinar in a university, I'll talk about some of Guru Nanak's teachings for the students. These insights are deep. I'm sure they'll help the students gain success in their lives and become better human beings. So let me start with the first lesson. It says, many are emotional and many are intellectuals. Rare are those who are emotionally intellectual. I'll tell you before I proceed, all these insights are taken from the Sikh scripture Guru Granth Sahib, and they all come from Guru Nanak. So the first one is, many are emotional and many are intellectuals. Rare are those who are emotionally intellectual. Your brain has two sides, the left and the right. The left brain is linked to your thinking, logic, memory, and intellect. And the right brain deals with your emotions, empathy, instinct, and intuition. The left brain is led by the ego. It takes you into the outside world. The right brain is led by your heart. It takes you into your inner world. Most people are driven by their left brain. Others are too emotional. They are driven by their heartfelt feelings. Nanak says both of them suffer. Guru Nanak says you can overcome your sufferings through a balance of your logical acumen and emotional empathy. Find a balance between your intellect and instinct. You will get peace and bliss and become successful in your life. So the next one is, your stress and worries vanish when you connect with the divine. Guru Nanak says, stress is the gap between your physical and soulful vibrancy. It is the root cause of illness. In Punjabi language, health is called tandurusti, which amounts to tan de vich ruh di sthiti. Tandurusti is a state where its soul is embedded into the body. Guru Nanak says, when your body and soul will come at the same frequency, your stress will vanish and you will attain perfect health. Perfect health means you have proximity to God. Bring your body and soul at the same frequency, all your desires will be met. You will connect with the divine. The third one says, you take worldly authority as the truth rather than taking God's truth as a real authority. In this state of alienation from God, you are bound to suffer. Here Guru Nanak says, the idea of making material success the measure of happiness is wrong. It is a principal reason for your miseries. The left brain by default takes dominance. Through the ideas of materialism, the ego is further reinforced. In such a condition, your inner bond breaks and you become discontent and anxious. Guru Sahib says, contentment and compassion are the real virtues. They will keep your courage intact. Become content and compassionate. You will enjoy your life and freedom. I'll take the next one. Life is the other name of change. The more you struggle to accept the change, the more you suffer. Here, Guru Sahib says, life is nothing but change. The entire creation comes from the basic energy of the universe. Since energy tends to move from order to disorder, the creation undergoes a constant change. Guru Nanak regards the constant change as hukam and teaches you to flow with the current of the change rather than going against it. If you go against the current, you will tire out yourself and suffer in pain. If you want to maximize your energy, use creative energy instead of your own. Adapt to the hukam. Ride on the wings of the creative energy. Your life will become easy and joyous. This one says, 3 energies came together before you got conceived. 2 from your parents and the third, your soul. Never complain. Be grateful for what you got. When you look at the things you don't have, you become dissatisfied and complaining. Guru Nanak reminds you that whatever you are and wherever you are, it's because of your own karma. Your conception happened because your soul energy was compatible to your parents' energies. So never complain. Be grateful to God for giving you this amazing human life. And with this, I'll move on to the next one, which is, I think, Professor Kiran Kaur shed some light on that. Within the woman, man gets conceived. From the woman, man is born. From the woman, woman is born. Through the woman, generations exist. Without the woman, there would be no one at all. Obviously, this one is related to women. In a time when women's oppression was at its peak, Guru Nanak declared, no one has the right to disrespect or abuse women. Even the kings cannot dishonor them. They must remember, they too are born from a woman. Women are as important as men. They make half of humankind. They make half of the planet. Guru Nanak called the patriarchs of the society and told them, give women respect, dignity, and equal status. It is their birthright. Last but not the least, as 9 months pass well because you stay attached to God through the umbilical cord in your mother's womb. Keeping the eternal connection alive is the first lesson of wisdom you don't learn, and pay its price by your sufferings. Now, this one is deep indeed. Guru Nanak says, your life started at the moment you got conceived in your mother's womb, which is a dark place. In the womb, you were hung upside down in fiery conditions. Despite that, you were at ease. Why? It's because you were connected to God through the umbilical cord. After 9 months, when you entered the world, the umbilical cord was cut, and that broke your divine bond. The reason for your sufferings is separation from God. If you want to come out of your miseries and become peaceful and happy, set your relationship with God. I picked up these few insights from Guru Nanak's teachings. I can go on endlessly on this, but I'll stop here. And I hope you must have learned some new lessons from Guru Nanak's wisdom today. If these ideas have resonated with you, then go ahead and start living them in your day-to-day life. From my personal experience, I can assure you that you will discover a completely transformed person within yourself who is extremely productive, free of stress, living a fulfilled life, and enjoying every moment in freedom. If you want to learn more of Guru Nanak's lessons, you may visit my website, sciencetospirit.com. Hope you enjoyed this session. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Rest assured, it certainly resonated when you mentioned Guru Nanak's teaching on women in particular. It's such an egalitarian faith and something very interesting to study for sure. I'm conscious of time, so I'd like to give the floor to our next panelist, Arish Iqbal, who's the president of the Indian Student Society, actually. So Arish, the floor is yours for about 5 minutes. I'd like to keep some time for the questions and answers, if you don't mind.
Sure thing. Thank you very much, Leila. Thank you very much, Professor Kiran Kaur and Dr. Manjeet Singh. It's been truly inspiring. This 40-50 minutes till now, it's been truly inspiring, and all the ideas like resonate with me on daily life basis. I personally, I'm not a follower of Sikhism, but all these ideas have resonated with me from like early in life and the teaching of my parents. So everything we learned here today, I think is going to be beneficial for us and everybody on the panel and the audience for a long time. I am the president of the Indian Society in the University of Portsmouth, and our whole what we do here is basically bring together everybody from India and make them feel a part of the community here in Portsmouth, because you can understand students coming from a different country and being in a different country, that they lose that kind of a touch to the culture or their religion and stuff like that. So our whole sole basis of the Indian society to exist here is to replenish that connection of the students from their culture and the things, the festivals and stuff like that. We also have a Gurudwara here in Portsmouth that we occasionally visit. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we cannot go there now. But yeah, I mean, I'm thankful to Professor Harkiran Kaur and Dr. Manjeet Singh for this wonderful presentation. Thank you very much on behalf of the students.
Thank you very much, Harik, for being also very sharp and concise. Thank you so much. So we are receiving a number of questions of interest. If you don't mind, I'm going to use my sort of right as a chair to ask you the first question. There's something which I've always observed. I've happened to have lived in India for a number of years and partly still live in India. When going to Gurdwara, it's a very common thing to go to a Gurdwara, whether you're sick or not sick, actually. I think many enjoy the experience. So when Guru Nanak says, na koi Hindu, na Musulman, and then you can go on, you can say Buddhist, Christian, da. So this idea of one single human being, how modern was that, and how also revolutionary it was and still is in India, in South Asia, and generally in the world. I have in mind the Anti-Racism Day, which is on the 21st this week. Can you elaborate further, Professor Kaur and Mr. Singh?
Yeah, a very good observation. The na koi Hindu, na koi Musalman. What Nanak meant was that, as I started with that everybody is equal. Everybody is equal opportunities, and he was a revolutionary at that time. He was, if you may call him a rebel, he changed the diaspora. He changed the entire winds of. He was a wind of change. That was like when he says Sadguru Nanak Pargatya Mitti Tun Chanan Hua. He dispelled, this casteism, the racism, the disparity. He was very clear that whosoever comes to this earth, maybe a man or a woman or from any other, all religions or caste or creed, they all are humans first. So today we talk of a topic or say label called as being human, which was given way back 550 years back by Guru Nanak.
So I would like to add something to what Professor Kiran said. When Guru Nanak says there's no Hindu, no Muslim, it goes beyond. It is not just about Hindu or Muslim, it goes across humanity, all religions, all cultures, all faiths. Guru Nanak says religions came much later. What was there before religions came into existence? Because religions are only 7,000 years old. When Hinduism emerged as the first religion through the Rig Veda. And what was before that? So Guru Sahib says morality and humanity is the original religion. It is beyond any other religion. It is morality is natural to human beings. Even before the religions came into existence, people were moralistic. And moral is the main ground. You may adopt any religion that teaches moralistic values and ethical values. That is good. But even before religions were there, morality is natural to human beings. And Guru Nanak says, Pai Parapat Manukh de Huriya, Gobind Milan ki eho teri bhaiya. It's in Punjabi, I'll explain to you. Guru Nanak said, when the soul acquires the human body, it is their turn to meet with the divine. There are 8.4 million creatures living on earth. Guru Nanak said it in about 550 years ago. Now that was recognized by scientists who worked for about 4 decades to 5 decades. And finally, they published a report in the BBC in year 2011. And they confirmed that there are about 8.7 million species that live on earth. So Guru Nanak, 5 centuries ago, said there are 8.4 million species. Now, out of 8.4 million species, Guru Nanak says only human body, only the human form is capable of meeting with the divine. And he says, it is your turn, once you have acquired the human body, it is your turn to meet with the divine. So Guru Sahib's words are beyond Sikhism, beyond Hinduism, beyond any religion. It relates to the human body in any avatar, whether a Muslim, Christian, Jew, or whatever. Once you have acquired the human body, it is your turn to meet with the divine. That is the idea. That is the thought.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. Now we have a few questions for you. The first question from Alexandra. Where can I read, or where can I get more information about these 6 elements?
So sorry.
Can I repeat that word? A question from Alexandra, and she asked, where can I get more information about the 6 elements?
There are, I think, a lot of resources. And there are some directories which are published regularly. And there are, you can visit, I think there's an online platform which is called by Veer Singh Sadan, by Veer Singh Sadan. I think they have a website, and all of Sikh literature is available there. Or you can simply go to a Gurudwara, your nearest Gurudwara, and you can have loads of guidance from there.
I'll add on to what Mr. Manjeet sir said. Across all diaspora, across the globe, the Gurudwaras are there, and any Gurudwara you go, wherever you are, you have to just ask for the literature, the Sikh literature, or whatever you want to learn about Nanak or Sikhism or what it professes. You'll have everything up your sleeve. You have to just go and ask, seek, and you'll get it.
Thank you very much. We have another question from colleague Professor Tamsin Bradley. What lessons but we take from Sikhism that have particular relevance in this time of COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, I shared in my presentation also, there were, out of the 3 tenets of Guru Nanak, there was like one chakku. And besides that, being patient. Time will take its own toll. No one ever, I think COVID shouldn't have been so harsh for us to stand by. It should have given us some other ways, but the whole world stood by. This is where we all came together. Today, this very platform, I think it's a byproduct of COVID-19 only. Otherwise, people from across the globe sitting right now talking about it. So Sikhism, or being a Sikh, or being a Guru Nanak followers in these COVID times, it is to be humane. Right, to share it, whatever you have, little, whatever is in your up your sleeve, whatever you are possessing, try to share. Sharing is caring. It is not just said it happened, and COVID is a witness to it.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And indeed, when you mentioned that the Golden Temple was feeding something like 100,000 people a day, it's crazy, isn't it? It's a fantastic example of this generosity, surely. I have another.
Not only today, it is from times immemorial.
Mm-hmm. You're right, you're right. Another question for you. When you said, the 2 of you, or you alluded to the idea that we have to embrace change, and that also relates to the pandemic to some extent, I was wondering to what extent this idea of embracing change that we find in yogic philosophy, in the Hindu text, is inspired precisely by well, traditional Hinduism and yoga in particular.
Guru Nanak has taken yoga as a very, it's very good for the purification of the body. Yoga, in fact, that is practiced in the modern times, it has been diminished from its original values. Hinduism is the first religion. It is also called Sanatan Dharam, which means the perpetual religion. And Hinduism started from the Rig Veda. There are 4 Vedas, and among the 4, Rig Veda is the first one. And all the 4 Vedas are basically Shrutis. Shruti is something that you speak, that you recite, that you utter. And all the 4 Vedas, they are meant for utterance. And before they existed, even people used to recite and sing even before writing came into being. Writing has been a very, very life-changing, discovery for humanity. Because before writing came into being, it was very difficult for people to communicate. And whenever someone had a problem, whenever someone was in a trouble, what would you do in such a condition? You would shout out. You would. So people used to make voices, would speak whatever they had learned, in a hope that they will connect with the divine, and some hope will come from the skies, which will help them and solve their problems. So Rig Veda was the first that came into being after the writing was discovered. And Rig Veda is written in Sanskrit language because that was the first language in this part of the world. So all the 4 Vedas are basically Shrutis, which are meant for hearing and uttering. There is nothing in the Vedas that is meant for reading or writing. It was all memorized at that point of time. So from that Rig Veda, there are many schools of thought have emerged within Hinduism. Yoga is one of them. Kundalini Yoga is another one. Then this Gita is another one. Karma is another one. There are many schools. I mean, at least 10 or 12 schools of thought are present in Hinduism, which is why Hinduism has become very, very confusing. And the simplest thing to say is, because there's no specific path given, so out of the many, many streams that are there, you pick and choose whatever you want. So gradually over centuries, the value of Hinduism has somehow been mitigated. From the Vedas, if you see what is practiced in Hinduism today, it has become only ritual, more of a ritual, less of practice. You go to a temple, you bring that ghanta and you do a ritual. It's more or less, it has become ritualistic. Now, yoga is a very profound thing. And the original yoga from Patanjali has got a lot of hymns to it that are essential part of yoga. Today, yoga is considered as Hatha Yoga, which is the physical postures. And the other dimension is your pranayama, which is controlling your breath. So these 2 streams are more popular. In fact, they are the only ones that are prevailing now. The most important dimension was reciting of the hymns from the Vedic, Rig Vedas and other Vedas and Upanishads. They have been taken out because nobody wants to chant. Nobody wants to remember God. You want to do yoga because it gives you physical fitness. So the values have shifted somehow from the original intent. And yoga is a great thing. I mean, there's no doubt about yoga, but the original yoga is meant to bring body and the soul together for attaining divinity. I don't know if anyone has attained divinity after Lord Krishna. I don't know.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. Yes, the yoga, the unity, isn't it? So that's a fantastic explanation. We have time for 2 more questions because I'm conscious of time, but yet at the same time, I don't want to frustrate anyone because it's so really interesting. So we have a question from our colleague Bobby Mehta, who works with our Pro VC Chris in the global engagement team. What was Guru Nanak's views on technology? Well, at that time, right? And what guidance would the Guru give us in today's society?
See, Guru is divine, and the way he has led, irrespective of a person belonging to any caste, color, creed, he has taken them through. For example, I'll just give an instance. The foundation of Darbar Sahib, Golden Temple, was laid down by Mian Mir, a Muslim prophet. Guru Granth Sahib has all the writings of different sects of people, besides being our own sects and gurus, from Hindus, from Muslims, from different kind of sects, those who have written. So that is a part of Guru Granth Sahib. So in terms of technology, if you say there was no technology when Guruji was traveling or what he was doing, but technology, when you're connected, internet is connected, right? And this is where how we can do the Zoom meetings, or we can connect or send a WhatsApp. So when you're connected to God, when you are doing a prayer, you are listening to God. But when you're doing a meditation, God is listening to you. So that is the connectivity. It doesn't require any bandwidth. Bandwidth is the soul, the purity, the mankind, that yes, I have to be a good human being. Appreciating someone's small gesture is being human. Holding a hand is being human. Paying compliments, in the worst scenario, but still appreciating the person's effort is being human. Reaching out to those in distress is being human. So it is, as Mr. Manjeet said, Guru Nanak teaches are like vast ocean. I think as we swim across the ripples, it will go for a lifetime with all of us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Professor Kaur, again for reminding us of something which seems so simple, but we've been so much deprived of this humanity during the pandemic crisis, So relating to what you said is certainly extremely important. I have one more, even two more questions for you. A question really interesting from Brownie. Well, not everybody has visited the Gurdwara. Some people would be interested. And the question is, for those who have visited or want to visit, could you explain some of the ways in which the design of the space is done and mean that everybody's welcoming or not?
Golden Temple, Amritsar, it has got 4 doors, right? That means welcoming people from across the world, from across diaspora, irrespective of caste, color, creed, religion, and people from across, from the highest authority to the lowest authority, people are there for seeking peace. So that is open to everyone. And I would just suggest Bryony, whenever she has time in life, she must visit a Gurudwara, and the peace that she will get there, it is beyond words.
Thank you very much.
And if Bryony is somewhere anytime visiting India, on behalf of Chitkara University, I invite her to be our guest, and we will take her to Harmandir Sahib Golden Temple, Amritsar. That is an open, welcoming gesture from Chitkara University. Our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Ashok Chitkara, and Dr. Madhu Chitkara, Pro-Chancellor, they always say we are like open to the world. And we have always welcomed Mrs. CJ, if we call us, and she was on 28th February 2018, she was on campus with us from University of your university. She was here. So we openly welcome all these people on board today from across the globe to be a part of us. And whenever you're traveling, just let us know. We will be your host and we'll take you to Golden Temple.
I'll remember that.
I'm sure that you'll have lots of guests. I see our PVC Chris waving and approving. So he's already taken his ticket to Chandigarh, I'm sure. Last question, in relation to this welcoming environment and what Mr. Singh was alluding to, this idea of chanting or the mantras, it's been proven scientifically, actually, that it has a great effect. Can you explain that to us? And can you tell us whether in Sikhism you use particular mantras and what's the idea behind that?
Yes, I will try to explain it to you. Guru Granth Sahib is actually, not to say it's actually an ocean of knowledge. What we know, what science knows of the universe today, it is based on the Big Bang Theory. It says that there was when nothing existed, there was only a spot of darkness, a dark point somewhere. That exploded, and from where the entire creation emerged. This is the Big Bang Theory. It is the prevalent cosmological model on which science rests. All of the streams of science, they rest on this, this argument. This is a prevailing cosmological model of sciences. Now, in Guru Granth Sahib, Guru Nanak Dev explicitly said this thing. When I read the content, the words written in Guru Granth Sahib, uttered by Guru Nanak about the emergence of the universe, I think that the Big Bang Theory has copied it from there. It is as relevant. It is as equal in those terms. So I feel surprised sometimes, how is it possible that without any scientific gadget, without any scientific instrument, without any, telescope, without the help of anything, how could Guru Nanak say, give such profound and such deep and such correct information about the emergence of universe? So Guru Nanak has said that when there was nothing, there was mystery darkness in a point, which he calls as Arbad Narbad Dhundukara. So when nothing existed, there was a point of mystery darkness. And that mystery darkness, that point, that spot had an explosion within it. It had a very big bang, very big sound. So Guru Sahib says the entire idea is, and the entire truth is, that sound is the basic energy of the universe. And other religions such as Christianity, Islam, they believe that it is a word from which the universe, the entire existence came. Word was the first thing there was a word. So word is said because sound is expressed in terms of words. You speak, you make the sound that comes out as word. So they are basically intertwined. Word and sound is intertwined. So that is one idea. And sound is, because it is sound, it is your sound energy, it is a vibration of the universe by which you can connect with the divine. So the divine is formless, that sound is formless. And from that sound, through the reverberation of that sound, Guru Sahib says, through that sound, when it vibrates, it has got 5 basic sounds. The one primal sound, when it resonates, when it vibrates, when it reverberates, it creates 5 basic notes. That we know in English as 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, U. So that's very surprising and very, very intriguing, in fact. So through these, Guru Nanak calls these 5 Panch Shabad. These are the Panch Shabad. So from the one word come these 5 Panch Shabad, and through these 5 Panch Shabad, you can go back into the divine by chanting them, by reciting them. If you use a mantra that has, divine words that connect with these 5 Panch Shabad, that these 5 vowels, as you say in English, and if the mantra is proper, it can take you back to your origin and connect you with God. You can become God yourself. And that is the idea of Guru Nanak. When Guru Nanak says, Pai Parapat Manuk de Huriya, Gobind Milan ki eho teri bariya, it means, and he says only humans have the power to connect with the divine, to become God themselves, just like Guru Nanak became, just like Jesus became, just like Muhammad became. So it is through the sound that you can go back into your origin, the primal sound. And the Mool Mantra given in Guru Bani, Guru Granth Sahib, it has got all that qualities, all those values which can, invoke the Panch Shabad and take you back into the divine. And that Guru Sahib says is the aim of human life. Because only humans can make sounds, only humans can utter words, only humans can speak. No other species in the 8.4 million other forms of life, no one can make words from their sound. So that's the whole idea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for this very, very clear, fascinating explanation, and very scientific as well. You probably know that at the University of Portsmouth, we have a quite reputed institute for cosmology, and I'm sure our Pro-VC, Professor Bob Nicol, who used to be the chair, would be delighted to hear you, because there's a lot of science beyond that as well. So I think we'll take your word as a conclusion. The aim of the human being back, or going back to the divine through this sort of experiences and indeed encounter, I think. Thank you so much to all the panelists, Professor Kaur, Mr. Singh, and Arish, for all this discussion. That was fascinating. We've received lots of comments and congratulations. And well, one more time, thank you very, very much for accepting this invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Be a part of this. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Leila. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
And we'll see you soon, hopefully in Chandigarh.
We're looking forward to have you. Bryony is there, and I would love to welcome her whenever she's around at this place.
Very good. Fantastic. And as I said, you're receiving lots of very nice comments in the chat box if you want to take a look at them. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joe. Greetings to everyone from Chandigarh, Chitkara, India. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Sat Shri Akal.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.